Welcome back, Focus Learners. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we are unpacking a truly transformative explainer, the architecture of self-compassion and change. Our core mission for the next few minutes is super direct, but honestly, it's a real game changer. We're going to completely shift how we view our uncontrollable past so we can finally take charge of our future. We'll be looking at the exact mechanics of how accepting the things we literally cannot change is actually the absolute foundation for taking full responsibility for what we can. So let me ask you something right off the bat. Does your life look exactly the way you expected it to? I want you to really think about that for a second. If you're like, well, almost every single human being on this planet, the answer is a resounding no. Right? We all start out with these grand plans, these incredibly specific blueprints for how our careers, our relationships, and our personal lives are going to unfold. But the reality, our starting lines and our daily circumstances rarely, if ever, go exactly according to those plans. And, quite often, when things veer off course, our immediate reflex is to just blame ourselves. We kind of assume we must have calculated something wrong. But as we're about to see, that assumption is deeply flawed.
Let's see how this builds our understanding as we jump right into part 1. The uncontrollable starting line.
The very first step here is validating a profound reality. Right from the second we're born, the sheer volume of uncontrollables shaping our lives is staggering. I mean, think about it. We don't decide who our parents are. We don't choose our ancestors. We have zero say in our genetics, which dictates so much of our physical and mental baselines. We don't pick the geographic locations we reside in during those early formative years, or even the initial circles of friends we make in love. And there's a whole whirlwind of other external circumstances constantly swirling around us. If you're feeling a slight sense of overwhelm hearing this list, well, yeah, that is entirely the point. Our lives have been drastically shaped by all of these factors crashing together long before we even knew how to make a conscious choice. It really all boils down to this. We get into situations due to a whole lot of uncontrollable factors. This is such a crucial realization. It literally gives us permission to stop blaming ourselves for the entirety of our past. There are a lot of things that have happened and honestly that keep happening which are simply out of your hands. Before we can even talk about making changes or improving our lives, we have to clear away that heavy, suffocating fog of misplaced guilt. You're basically navigating a maze where you didn't even get to build the walls. Okay, let's dive into this next phase, section 2, self-compassion versus self-pity. So once we accept that heavy realization about our uncontrollable past, what do we actually do with that information? How do we process it without just throwing our hands up and giving up? Well, the answer is self-compassion. But we really need to define that clearly because it's a term that gets thrown around a lot these days. Self-compassion is acknowledging that when you look back on your life, you always did your best with the very specific resources you had. I want to highly emphasize that part. The resources you had within your physical and mental capabilities at that exact moment in time. You didn't have the 20/20 hindsight you have now. You didn't have the emotional tools you have today. Looking inward and cutting ourselves some slack for not knowing what we didn't know, that is the foundational requirement for moving forward. Now, what's really interesting here is the sharp contrast between these two concepts, which completely busts the myth that having compassion for yourself is just passive wallowing. Actually, scratch that. Self-pity is the wallowing. Self-pity is when you look at that list of uncontrollable factors from earlier and you just sit in it. You let it become your permanent excuse. But self-compassion? That is an active, dynamic state. It is acknowledging your best past effort given your limitations, for sure, but it is instantly followed by a powerful decision. You decide that you can be better now. Self-compassion is the exact tool that helps us take full responsibility for our lives. It clears the emotional slates so we can finally get to work. Let's shift gears from the analytical side into something a bit more reflective for section 3, the cards you are dealt. All of us are dealt with a different set of cards we need to play with. End quote.
All of us are dealt with a different set of cards we need to play with.
Which brings us perfectly to the ultimate narrative arc of our explainer. Section 4, the power of next steps.
So the crucial point is, we've accepted the cards we were dealt, and now we decide exactly how to play the hand. Because all of us have the power of decision at any time. While the past was entirely out of your hands, your present decision-making power is absolute. If life is not the way you expect it to be, this is the exact moment you get to take action. Taking responsibility isn't about blaming yourself for getting into a situation. It's about recognizing that you, and literally only you, have the authority to reform yourself and become a better version of yourself moving forward. Your power is in the present moment.
And this brilliantly illustrates a highly actionable 3-step roadmap for us. Step 1, acknowledge you did your best with the uncontrollable factors and limited resources you had. Seriously, give yourself that brace. Step 2, take full responsibility for your life right now. No more wallowing in self-pity over the hand you were dealt. And step 3, transform one small step at a time. Notice it doesn't say transform your entire life overnight. It says we can change our lives if we choose to believe in the process of transformation through small, manageable, incremental steps.
Which leaves us with this final provocative question. What is the very next small step you will take with the cards you currently hold? You have the architecture now. You know that beating yourself up over uncontrollable factors is useless. You know that self-compassion is the key to unlocking true personal responsibility. So, looking at your hand today, right in this very moment, what is one tiny, actionable decision you can make to reform into a better version of yourself? Don't worry about the entire staircase, just focus on that first step. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, Focus Learners. Keep learning, keep taking those small steps, and I will see you next time.